I-V-M.
Hi, I'm Utsav, a behavior researcher by training and a slow traveler by passion. Postcards from Nowhere is a travel podcast where I condense a decade of travel experiences and explore not just the where, but also the why and how to travel. My stories emerged from slow traveling the less explored parts of the world: Bosnia and Herzegovina, Armenia, Uzbekistan, and even China. At the end of each story, I give practical tips and new ideas about how to travel better. This week, I take you to the ghost cities of China and how beneath the veneer, a different story plays out. In the 1780s, a curious construction toured around the courts of Europe, a wooden toy and ivory cabinet with an Ottoman automation and a chessboard on its lid. The robot played a succession of challengers, including Benjamin Franklin and Napoleon. Its powers were attributed to scientific invention and devilry alike. It was, in fact, operated by a legless Russian veteran hidden in a covert cabinet behind the clockwork. It eventually came to be known as the Mechanical Turk. The city is like a mechanical Turk. They hide their mechanics, tubes and sievers underground or within walls. What shows on the surface are the avenues and streets. In that sense, cities are like biological phenomena. The avenues and streets are nothing less than its arteries and veins. But what really makes a city, gives it character, is its lifeblood, its people. I was on a high-speed train from Beijing to Shanghai. The sun had just set, and I was peeking out of the window to catch a glimpse of China I knew I would not end up seeing. The smaller towns, away from the busyness and flashiness of Shanghai and Beijing, away from the cities of Chengdu and Chongqing, which were former backwaters transformed into modern cities. As we got closer to Shanghai, we passed by places which felt eerily empty. The skyline could rival Bombay or even Manhattan, but barring the lone light in the high-storied building, there was not much going on. One could see shiny new streetlights, wide roads and avenues, but just no people. I was encountering a phenomenon so prevalent across China that it came with the moniker of its own: the ghost city. I read up extensively on them. They were derided as follies of communist central planning, as a way for the Chinese government to artificially prop up its GDP. The economics Nobel laureate Milton Friedman called them statist monuments for a dead pharaoh on the levels of the pyramid. Visitors reported finding vast seas of empty high-rise apartments, barren roadways and shopping malls. These were dead on arrival, with the background soundtrack made up of echoes, gusts of wind and the sound of one's own footsteps. From the Chinese side, the rationale seems pretty plausible. As it continues to experience rapid economic growth, the government has rushed to urbanize rural areas. One of the key goals of this urbanization project is to redistribute economic opportunities that have drawn millions of rural folks into coastal cities. Hence, the new cities were built at a fast clip. It is estimated that the country has used more cement in its construction of new cities in 2 years than the entirety of the United States in the 20th century. I marveled at the existence of 50 plus ghost cities. But my own perceptions changed as I unwittingly found myself in one. It was the dream vision of none other than Deng Xiaoping, the successor of Mao and the architect of modern China. It was named after its location, the east bank of the Hangpu River. It was a flat farmland, a far cry from Shanghai's old city and its various foreign concessions. But even back in 2014, what I encountered was not a ghost city. It was a vibrant, bustling area with some of the most expensive real estate Shanghai had to offer, boasting of a 99% occupancy. The city district is called Pudong, the bustling financial capital of China, an intrinsic part of Shanghai which houses 5 million people today. What was farmland a few decades ago, today is the gateway to China for the rest of the world, as it houses the Shanghai Pudong International Airport. But for the initial years, it was indeed a ghost town, a laughing stock for the rest of Shanghai. The then mayor admitted that Pudong was like buying a suit a few sizes too big for a growing boy. Across China today, the so-called ghost towns are slowly getting populated. Kangbashi in Inner Mongolia, Binhai New area near Tianjin, Mishi Lake City near Changsha are prime examples. Sure, many of these cities may not have lived up to their initial lofty promises, but they cannot be smeared by the moniker of a ghost city anymore. The entire journey of ghost cities feels like a fitting metaphor to our personal growth. We all have a closet full of failed projects, unrealized ideas, and abandoned pursuits. Of things we gave up on early, of things that fell into the chasm between motivation and success. Most of these things were conceptualized with our blind spots and eventually got waylaid by the travails of everyday life. But the significant side effect they generated is that very closet of failures, a ghost of our past. But maybe the entire point of this closet is to tell us about the infinite possibilities that exist within us. That the closet itself is an example of how imaginative, creative, and curious we are. The only thing we need to do is to persist, just like these Chinese cities, and let ideas come out of the closet and not bury them in the coffin of our insecurities. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Utsav Mamoria on Twitter and YVTravel42 on Instagram.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money and Intel. Before I tell you about some of the shows that we have for you this week, I really wanted to really point out the incredible efforts of our host and our team. We've been able to maintain most of our production schedule in this lockdown, which is going into 4 months now. And I couldn't be happier with the fact that our hosts and team have been able to just get all of this stuff out so incredibly well. So I just really wanted to call them out for that and thank them for their support in this time. And since I spent so much time talking about that, and I want to get you out of here quickly, let me give you a quick update on a few shows that you should check out this week. On Siders, we had Amish Tripathi, really interesting discussion, both of them dive deep into history. Monty Panesar was on Edges and Sledges, another really cool show. On Advertising is Dead, Then My Butt showed up. That was a cool episode. Malini Agarwal, also probably better known as Miss Malini, showed up on Absolutely Right. It's just been an absolutely gangbusters week in terms of the kind of guests we've had and the conversations we've had on the network. Please do check some stuff out. And with that, we hope to see you again next week.
Advertising is dead. Yep, you heard me right. Advertising is dead. We're all in the content business now. Let's not call it news, TV, radio, etc., etc. It's all content, and we're in the middle of this weirdly exciting phase where all the borders and lines that have been drawn over decades has been swept away by this lovely thing called the internet. We're a show where we don't dwell on just the stuff that is now, but rather the wider stuff about advertising, media, content, and the whole goddamn circus surrounding it. Tune in every Tuesday for our weekly unboxing of the mystery box we used to call advertising. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief at The Glitch, and this is my new podcast, Advertising is Dead.